Hello, everyone. Welcome to an interview we have with Tahanan Youth Organization, where we will be comparing and contrasting life in Filipino and British pattern education. So we have with us the founder of Tahanan, Mary Bancod. Could you please introduce Tahanan for us?
Hi everyone. So I'm Marie. I'm the founder and currently the executive director of the Hanan Youth Organization. And the Hanan is basically a non-profit, non-government organization that is youth-led, and it really revolves around um, trying to empower, educate, and serve the overseas Filipino youth. So that includes both the youth who used to live abroad and now live in the Philippines and vice versa, where they used to live in the Philippines and now live in the UAE or in any other country. So it's mostly about just trying to foster social awareness as well as strengthening camaraderie and um, social bondings with them as well.
That's amazing. So for Learners Path from our side, we are a youth organization as well that really focuses on kind of the board exams for the UK curriculum. And we're currently doing a chapters program with the Philippines, and we're very honored to have Tahanan as our first program, our first project for Learners Path Philippines. And I'm sure that this interview will help all of those watching right now, and even for us members of Learners Path. So just to get started right away, I heard prior to this interview that I think Ree and Clarence, I think one of you went to Ateneo de Manila and one went to UST. Is that right? Yeah, right. So, and I also heard prior that you went to high school in the UAE. So, could you please share to us if there's any similarities or differences with high school in the UAE and in the Philippines?
All right, sure. So Cla and I actually studied in the same school, in the same high school back then in the UAE. I currently study in the Ateneo de Manila and class studies in the UST. And because we studied in a Philippine school, there's not a lot of differences because yun nga, kasi since same lang naman yung, halos same lang yung system and pati yung culture, parang hindi naman kami masyadong na-culture shock. I don't know if it's the same for Kla, but for me personally, it wasn't that big of a shock for me anymore when I studied or when I transferred here to the Philippines. Siguro sa culture na lang talaga because, even though we were exposed to like the Filipino culture, we were surrounded by members of the Filipino community in the UAE. It's still different when you're in the Philippines talaga. So, parang iba yung pakikitungo o pakikisama ng mga ibang tao sa'yo, as well as what they expect from you. The lingo as well is kind of different. But it's still fun nevertheless. And in terms of the education system, um, I think we'll get more in depth to that later. But yeah, that's all.
What about you, Clarence? Was it the same for you as well then?
Yeah, I've had my fair share of similarities with Dre when it comes to the system here in the Philippines. I agree that it wasn't much different when it comes to the curriculum, but it really is the environment surrounding us. It really is different to study actually in the Philippines in contrast to studying in a Filipino school in the Middle East.
That's quite remarkable and noted. Um, well, for me, from my side, I've actually never been to a Filipino school, a Filipino curriculum school. I'm currently in international school right now in Dubai. And it must be really nice to share and be in a community with other Filipinos in a Filipino school. And I really admire you for that, honestly. That's something that I've always dreamed of, actually. But um, being in an international school, um, mahirap. It's hard to express your own Filipino culture with other people because a lot of them don't know what I like. They don't know who Zakta Budlo is. They don't know what adobo is. They don't even know what ulam is. I was so shocked by that, right? So I actually had a coffee chat with one of my alumni from school. Pinoy din siya. He's now in London School of Economics. Tas sabi niya, the way to survive in an international school when you're a person of color is to try to find a middle ground with other people of other cultures. And I found out that a lot of South Asians as well, they have carbs and they have something that they eat along with that. And us Filipinos, we have rice and ulam, right? And so it's really nice to just share with other people, even though it's a limiting factor, to share my own culture with other people because they don't understand it. And I'm sure that even in the UAE, I'm sure that you too have also had that experience because school life in the Philippines and anywhere else is really different. But yeah, even though it was a limiting factor to share my experience as a Filipino, the experience to share that with other non Filipinos was quite abundant. And like what you said, it was really fun as well. Right. And in regards to that, could you also tell us what do you think people enjoy the most about high school in a Filipino school?
So, as Filipinos who used to study abroad, as what we have mentioned earlier, it really is the immersion to the Filipino culture, plus experiencing living in the Philippines after years of being away from the homeland. Um, I think that Filipino culture is really beautiful. It really is something else to study in an environment full of Filipino people. They have the culture, the heritage. They have different actions that we don't really normally see in Dubai. And the interaction really with the fellow students in the Philippines, it really is somewhat different. It really feels like you're at home. And although we spent years abroad, it may be new to us, but the warmth of the people really made it easier to adjust. And another thing that people enjoy the most in the Philippines, studying here in the Philippines, is probably, for my experience, I don't know if others can relate, but the org culture in the Philippines. It really is something that I have been introduced. Organizations in schools wherein the youth is actually using their platforms to provide services, to provide advocacies. The youth is trying to involve themselves to the environment, to the society, and I think that org culture is really something that can help us hone our skills and our thinking process into actually preparing us not only in just a classroom setting, but also can help us interact with one another in the world of the adults. So one thing that really has helped cope or helped enjoy the high school life in the Philippines is org culture and its environment.
Can I add more onto what Clarence has said? Yes. So I really agree with him. Um, those sa sinabi niya about the org culture. Actually, I've been a part of various organizations in our school, and that was what inspired me to found Tahanan. Because of the org culture, I was able to develop my project management skills as well as other skills that come along with it. And just being able to bring out your advocacy and share it with other people and allow them to be part of that of upholding those advocacies as well was a really good opportunity for me, and I wanted to bring that to the overseas Filipino community as well. And aside from that, from the org culture, siguro a more casual thing that um a lot of high school students enjoy in the Philippines is yung after school stuff na ginagawa. Kunwari pagkatapos ng school, bibili kayo ng pagkain sa labas, like mag-ano kayo ng fishbowl, ng quick, stuff like that. Parang it's a nice feeling, and it's something kind of mundane, but it's not something that we have in the UAE or abroad. So I personally learned to appreciate those kinds of small things when I transferred. So that being said, I personally have learned, or rather heard a lot about the British curriculum. So I think as someone who's studying in a school that, utilizes the British curriculum, would you say that it still leaves time for you to partake in self-care activities? Kasi parang ang busy niyo lagi.
Um, it's true. Like when people think about the British curriculum, um, it's really busy. It is, but in terms of taking care of yourself, like self-care activities, depende. Kasi it really like some people, they take different number of subjects. For me, I take 4 A levels. Others take 3, and others take 4 plus an extended essay. And in grade 10, what we have is IGCSEs or GCSEs or O levels. Some people take 5, I took 8, some people take 12. So it really depends on, like, in terms of self care, it depends on that person. And the British curriculum, we kind of revolve around important dates. Like, for example, on Monday, we have a physics a physics lab, or on Tuesday we have our biology practical, or on Friday we have our math board exam. So leaving time for yourself, it's difficult, but what I've learned is a lot of people use Google Calendars. Some of us use like real calendars here, um, and it's hard. It really is hard, but I think that along the way, you kind of need to force yourself to take some time for yourself. It's like how you need to sleep or how you need to drink water. Yes, you have to work. Yes, you have to go to the gym. Yes, you have to study. But at the end of the day, you need rest. So I would say that it does leave some time. Actually, about that, about taking care of yourself and important exams and dates. I'm also intrigued about the Filipino pattern education. Could you please highlight the key features, or are there any other important exams or any special academic culture?
Pagdating sa culture, in general, Filipinos care a lot about their academics. So many students strive for academic distinction. So yung with honors, with high honors, and with highest honors, which are, they're calculated to average new grades. Pero I think one of the biggest things that sets it apart from other curricula in different countries is yung senior high school. So they divide yung grade 11 and 12 students to academic and non-academic tracks. And they have the freedom to choose which one they like. So for example, Clarence and I are both in the Humes strand, which stands for Humanities and Social Sciences. And we have friends from the STEM strand, the which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and some are in business and a lot of other things. So grade 11 and 12 pa lang, senior high school pa lang, ale gusto na ng education system for the students to kind of have a sense of direction for them to be more prepared once they step into college. And aside from that, yung for the assessments, we don't have like a lot of those. Siguro yung regular examinations lang sa schools as well as the National Achievement Test. So yung National Achievement Test, meron siya for grade 6, 10, and 12. And um, it's basically used, the results of the National Achievement Test every year is to measure um, the level of what do you call this? Yung capabilities ng students based on different subjects, and they formulate a report based on the results. And then, other than that, meron din yung entrance exams. So meron for high school, especially for science high schools, but most of them are for colleges. So right now, marami na, most of the colleges have already opened or tapos na actually sa college entrance exams nila. So other universities such as UP, University of the Philippines, are yet to open their um, entrance examinations. So yung iba, they enroll in a review center to prepare for those entrance examinations, but some of them go with self-studying na lang. So they take into online materials and or going through their past materials from their old schools.
So just a quick question. The National Achievement Test, are they also used as like part of your university application process in the Philippines?
They're not, no. And they rin siya accounted sa grades namin. They're really just there to measure. Yes.
All right, that's noted. But everything else, like the entrance exams, I heard there's specific entrance exams like UPCAT and others, right? So those are really the highest weightage for your acceptance, I suppose. Am I right?
Yes. And since we're in the topic of exams na rin, so the standardized assessments required in the British curriculum can be quite difficult to imagine. To manage, I can just imagine. And because of that, how do you cope with the stress that may come with preparing for them?
That's that question is a lot. And immediately I think of my friend in grade 10 or year 11 for us. We have these board exams called IGCSEs or GCSEs or O levels. And it's basically like for 3 whole academic years, it really just boils down to these exams. And my friend, for the majority of these board exams, he actually vomited before taking these exams in so much stress. And he had to go to the doctor to face this much stress. And in one time, in the midst of like a whole crowd of people in an exam room, a nurse actually had to come in and to give him a pill to just like calm down. And so it's really a lot. These standardized tests, A levels, GCSEs, the way that it's alam mo yun, parang it's just in your face. Kailangan mo gawin yun and you need to do it well. It's hard. And what I do instead to combat that is pretty much 3 things. I make a timetable, and I forcibly take breaks, and I do positive affirmations. And so for my timetable, I have an allotted time each day to study one subject, and then the other day I do another subject. And we have this study technique called past papers, where it's actually board exams of past papers, board exams of last year, or in last year, stuff like that. So I would complete one past paper and forcibly take a break for like 20 minutes to just calm down, to untangle my mind. Um, and honestly, it's really easy to get into this repetitive cycle of burnout. And I'm sure that what I've heard from my other Filipino friends in Filipino schools, that I know you have a lot of projects, and it's a lot of coursework that you kind of take upon. And it's really, really, I think that's common between us both in curriculums, is that it's really easy to get into that cycle of burnout and kind of putting yourself down. And what I do to combat that is positive affirmations. You can say it's a form of self love or loving yourself. And that is at the end of the day, after finishing 5, 6 past papers, before I go to bed, I just kind of meditate and tell myself, Zinc, you've done a lot today. You've done 5, 6 past papers. You've gone through the syllabus of biology. You've watched so many videos. You've corrected yourself. And that's good enough, honestly. And that's what got me good marks in my board exams. So even though it's quite difficult because of my GCSEs and A levels and other people, there have been cases of people who have fainted. Like in my church, someone fainted because of GCSEs. It's a lot, and it's it's something that I really wanted to change about my system, if I could. But I think in regards to that, 3 things that I do, and that is creating a timetable, forcibly taking breaks, and positive affirmations. And in light of that, about exams and how you cope with stress, I really wanted to know what's the structure of, like in a Filipino curriculum school, how is it structured? Like subjects, periods. How is a Filipino school like in terms of a school day?
Okay, in terms of a school day, it really differs from person to person or differs based on their school. Personally, in our school, I currently study in the University of Santo Tomas. It's a Catholic school in the Philippines, and we start days with prayers. We start them with hymns, national anthems, and I'd say about each period or each time. For each subject, we get to say our prayers before it starts and before it ends. One thing that I have noticed about Filipino a day in a Filipino curriculum is that some of our schedules are a bit long. It can be taxing to some students. In my case, I go to school from 8:30 in the morning until 6 p.m. in the evening, which is like 10 hours of learning. We have 9 or 8 subjects crammed, and we take an hour of each per day. It can be taxing and it can be tiring to our mental health and our physical health as well. That school days start some even start as early as 6 a.m. in the morning, some and even later in the evening. And I believe that should be something that should have been changed, and that our schedule is really packed. Um, as what I have noticed in the Filipino curriculum, it tends to cram a lot of things in a day, wherein we have different subjects. We have specialized subjects, we have minor subjects, and they're all crammed. So I believe that the Filipino curriculum could have its improvement on scheduling, and it is something that we have experienced day to day. So, with the topic of typical school day in our curriculums, I'd like to ask, what's the structure of a British curriculum school day?
Well, I can say for my school, um, well, we start our day at 7:30, right? That's our registration period, 7 to 7:30, and we have an assembly from 7:30 to 8. And we have 7 periods in a day. That's Monday to Thursday, and um, on Friday we have 3 periods. So each period is about 50 minutes long, and our periods are divided into subjects that we have selected. So other people who took economics, others might have biology at that time, or vice versa and stuff like that. So we would have 4 periods at first, and then we would have a 30-minute break. We can eat, we can play, we can do whatever we want. And after that, we have 3 more periods, and we end our day at around 2:20, 2:30. For our periods, other than just having our academics, we also um, have something called a skills program. I'm not sure about other British schools, but it's kind of something to boost our extracurriculars. We have subjects such as fashion design, music. What I take is IELTS. Um, Others take coding, Microsoft Office skills. So we have that as well. We take into, although it's quite limited for extracurriculars, we also have a little bit of that as well. So yeah, we start our day at 7:30, end at 2:20, and have 7 periods in between. Yeah, and that was actually, I noted that down about how you said that there can be cases of cramming and long hours. Um, so please tell us if there is anything that you could, if you could, is there anything that you want to change about Filipino pattern education?
Well, I'm just going to check on a little bit of topic since it's actually a lot to talk about. In a more micro perspective, the priority the prioritization of a specialized subjects to avoid repetition when it comes to minor subjects. As what Rehab mentioned earlier, our senior high school is split into different tracks. And specifically for us in the humanities and social sciences strand, we get specialized subjects wherein we get to talk about Senate bills, laws, social sciences, more on subjects that are about humans. And I believe that there should be a shift into the focus of the curriculum, wherein we should focus on what we are actually prioritizing, which is the specialized subjects, as to there are some minor subjects that we are currently taking right now, and some are just subjects from our junior high school, which is just a bit revised or a bit more elevated. I believe that Filipino education could reach greater heights once we have actually shifted our priorities when it comes to specialized education. Now, in a more nationwide perspective, the systemic problem wherein education is centralized around capitalistic ideologies. So there is a lot to work on in the Filipino patterned education. And I believe that if we join hands, if we together as a youth promote our advocacies our our ideologies in order to create change, it would be a beneficial thing for us all.
Wow. Accessibility to not only education, but quality education. That's really remarkable, and that's something that we also have to work on in any part of the world, especially in the Philippines. And my heart breaks for those Filipino youth, especially as a Filipino myself. My heart breaks for those who don't have any education and any access to that. Coming from a province in Isabela, I know a lot of people who don't have access to education and they don't know a lot about what's going on in the world right now. They just face it. And I really admire your efforts as Tahanan, that you're empowering, educating, and serving Filipino youth abroad and even in the mainland Philippines. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your words. Um, and yeah, that's something that's noted right now. In terms of British patterned education, what I would change, well, it's a lot to unpack here because, like I said, British pattern education, we revolve around important dates, and that is board exams. And something that I think I mentioned before is that your board exams at the end of the academic year is 100% of your grade, and it sucks because people people go through so much measure to complete these exams in the way that they want it to, and um, in the case of COVID-19, where we couldn't take these board exams, it was really difficult for teachers and schools to kind of assess a candidate. We call them candidates, those who are taking these board exams. I know if you call a student a candidate for an exam, that's that's when it goes downhill. But in COVID-19, it was hard to assess those who didn't take the exams. And so what actually happened was those who deserved an A star actually got B's and C's because they weren't from schools that were in the best economic status. You could say that. So, in terms of that, I really want the ideology of these board exams being 100% of your grade to be relearned. And like I said with my friend who vomited before these IGCSEs, I had another friend who also fainted in church while thinking about her IGCSEs. And that means that for the whole academic year, if you get U's, if you get a G, if you get F's, if you don't even take the exam, if you don't take your exams in schools, your mocks, that doesn't matter. If it's not COVID-19 or any other serious case, if you don't go to school at all, that doesn't matter. But if you get an A star or an A in your board exam, then that's all that matters. And I hate that. It sounds like it sounds like a positive thing, but it's floodgates to people having mental illnesses, stress, and just a downright weird education system. And so, if it were possible, honestly, I really wanted to stretch out that 100% grade weightage on several exams spread out throughout the year, because just the thought of taking an exam worth 100% of your grade, in which universities all around the world will be looking at, is terrifying. Literally, when I sat down for all of my IGCSEs, they had us take like our paper. They let us wait, literally wait for 10 minutes. They were reciting the rules saying, you are now under exam conditions. Please check your pockets again and stuff like that. And literally they are strict on the time on the dot, and the way that this is 100% of your grade is really really terrifying. And so if it were possible at all, we could spread out this 100%. It would not only help schools, it would not only help those going to university, but it would help society shape, because a lot of people go to British pattern education, and the top universities are from the UK. And a lot of universities abroad, they accept IGCSE qualifications and A-level qualifications and BTEC qualifications. And so if this curriculum is kind of relearned in a way, I'm sure that all of us would benefit from it.
Okay. Um, I think we can move on to the end of um yes, closing remarks. Pero can I just say muna, nakakatakot pala talaga yung curriculum niyo. I can just imagine how anxiety inducing it is. So I'm really sorry if you know with all the stress that you're going through, hopefully you'll be able to overcome them, and hopefully we'll be able to see change in the future. And aside from that, sa lahat ng mga napag-usapan natin, lalo na sa mga pwedeng pang i-improve sa education system ng Pilipinas, makita talaga natin na napakaraming problema na hinaharap ng ating bansa pagdating sa sistema na ito. At lalo na pagdating sa kalidad ng edukasyon na binibigay sa ating mga um, to our fellow youth. Like the quality of education should be developed as well as the systems that allow it to be what it is. And what I think what's important to know and to really hold on to is meron dapat tayong like we have to have something to hold on to. We have to remember why we are advocating for change in our education system, whether it be for the little things and until sa mga more important stuff. And that really boils down to um, kung ano yung gusto nating ma-achieve as a youth. So it could be a personal thing for our future. It could be for the development of the country. Let's say that what matters is that we realize our um, goals as individuals, as well as how the education system shapes what our society will be at present and in the future. And along with that, I think it's also very important for us to still take breaks, to still rest. That even though our education, of course, is very important, it's still uh, napakahalaga pa rin na alagaan pa rin natin yung sarili natin na magpahinga kapag kailangan. And we shouldn't equate our grades, our like report cards and stuff like that with our worth, because by having that kind of mindset, parang we're also taking away all of the other things that we're good at, all of the other things that we're passionate and interested in that may not be aligned with just the education that we are acquiring. So it's so important to have that kind of line and to still take care of ourselves.
I really agree. And, it's something that we have to think about again. It's not selfish to not lose yourself. It's something that you have to, you know, take an extra break. It's fine. Go outside, go on a walk. And it's those little things that kind of make us better people. When we're taking breaks, when we're just burnt out to the point where we can't even solve a question, it's not selfish to take a break. It's not selfish to not lose yourself. Um, and now that we've come to the end, I just want to thank the Hanan Youth Organization once again for joining us in this short interview. I'm sure that everyone watching here has gotten some insight on how university life is like in the Philippines and how it is in comparison or contrast to the British pattern education. From Learner's Path, we wish you the best and we really appreciate your effort in empowering, educating, and serving those Filipino youth abroad. Thank you so much once again, and we wish you the best.